My name's Stephen. As ever, I'm joined by another fabulous marketer and business leader for conversation today. I'm delighted to have Terence Tam on the podcast with me. Terence is the founder of Radical Marketing, a name that fits very well with this podcast, but is also an agency that partners with top-tier business coaches and expert speakers. Terence and his team help them to scale their business, working almost as a fractional CMO to create effective marketing strategies and funnels. Terence and his team partner with real experts with genuine life-impacting content. And I think it's a really unique sector that we've not had on the podcast before, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. What are some of the common challenges that are associated with marketing from your part of the world?
Okay, the challenges that are associated with marketing for my industry and my part of the world, I'll say just looking at what's out there in the marketplace right now, it's getting pretty competitive, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, when I first started with that client, this was like going 10 years ago, and we were probably, I wouldn't say the first, but one of the very first, if not the first, to actually advertise seminars online, right? But then today, you just open, say, YouTube or Facebook, and you just get, new guys all the time coming out and say, oh, I've got this new webinar doing blah, 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 right? So I think the first thing is that it's way more competitive, and that is a challenge for anyone who wants to enter this industry. It's way more competitive, and I guess audiences are also way more skeptical than they were, say, 10 years ago, because they've probably been burned by, buying some course that promised the world and delivered very little. So yeah, those are the two things. And I think one of the other key things is that most people or coaches in my industry are they don't have a clear point of difference, or they don't put enough thought as to what their clear differentiating point is or unique selling proposition. So, if they are teaching investing in stocks, they just say, oh, I am a stock investor. But so what makes you different to other people teaching stock investing? And I think really people in this industry should put in a bit more time to think about that, because that's super important.
There must be some sort of, I think you kind of alluded to then, some issues about communicating the credibility as well, because using your stock investor example, you might be very good at it, but it doesn't mean you're good at teaching it or passing on that kind of methodology also. Or it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good public speaker that can put together a structured program that the audience is going to be able to follow. So that must be a challenge, I'd assume, for you and your team to get that credibility across as well.
So especially for new people that want to enter the industry is super, super challenging. And I think that's where, it's so important. If say you're new in the industry, I think that's where price comes into play, right? If you're, say, charging $10,000, you really need a lot of credibility, right? Whereas if you're new in the marketplace, maybe you can charge $500, $1,000, and a few people will say, oh yeah, that's, sounds decent enough, and I'll give it a try. And from there, you can start building your credibility, because you have case studies of students actually succeeding, and then you can slowly over time increase your price. So that's one way to do it. And obviously, if you have done it before yourself, don't be afraid to show the results you have achieved, say, for example, in stocks, right? Yeah, because that speaks 1,000 words.
It's not geeky. We've got a whole series of podcasts all about aspects of marketing. So
right.
With our audience, it's not geeky. This is the type of stuff that we really enjoy chatting about. We're now post-COVID, and the world is opening up again. We're seeing a lot more trade shows and seminars and things like that wrapping up where I am based in Shanghai for sure. What's sort of the next 5 years look like for Radical Marketing, and what are your plans? What are the opportunities for growth?
I think one of the challenges we need to address in Radical Marketing is the fact that every one of our clients requires a customized marketing strategy, customized plan to some extent. So for example, even if I have 3 clients teaching people how to start an e-com business, for example, they each have their own personality, their personal brand, they have their methodology and everything. And while the formulas that we have somewhat work for all of them, it's not like, hey, I can have one ad that works for all 3 clients. It doesn't work that way in my industry. So as one of the I think there was a famous guy that was saying, listing all the various industries that agencies should go into, which ones are hard, which ones are easy. And yeah, coaches are one of the hardest, right? And yeah, say for example, someone like physiotherapy, super easy because you have one ad that works. You could duplicate it for different physios in different regions, right? And it all works, right? So yeah, that is the one challenge that we have, which is like, okay, how do we scale the agency without always having to require my brain power and my input because I'm the bottleneck right now.
Yeah.
So that is the big challenge for the agency.
Is that almost sort of building on a more programmatic approach or kind of almost an off the peg solution that you can apply to multiple potential clients? Yeah.
Correct.
Interesting.
So yeah, we're kind of exploring different niches at the same time, but we're not stopping our core business. We see it as a separate division. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at different smaller niches where, say for example, we're looking to dental right now to see whether that's a viable option for us as well.
Interesting. So there's different sectors that are opening up as potential avenues for growth too.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Fascinating.
I think if you come back to the coaching industry about what the future is like on that, I would say that first of all is like what we talked about is the branding thing, the personal branding thing. Second thing I'll say is like, okay, events, hybrid events are probably going to be more and more popular. Mm. And the third thing is that the whole general webinar or topic is becoming like irrelevant. So say, for example, let me give you an example. Like instead of talking about, come and attend my 3-hour program on how to invest in stocks, right? It's more like, come to my 3-hour program that shows you how to invest in penny stocks, for example. That would attract more people than investing in stocks in general.
Okay.
Right? Or you would say like how to buy tech shares, for example, rather than say invest in stocks in general. So it's becoming more segmented, I would say.
Okay.
And that's where the money is in the niches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's almost changing the mindset with the potential with the coaches and the speakers as well, in terms of breaking it down even further, what their insight and what their experience is relevant to.
Yeah, and that's just because the space is getting more competitive. So, you just have to become more niche in your focus. And secondly, as Eugene Schwartz would say, introduce your mechanism and make that mechanism really stand out. So that's the other thing you can do.
Fascinating. It's like I said, it's a really interesting sector that's gone through a challenging time, sort of pre, during, and post COVID. You've navigated lots of challenges, so it's really interesting to see a business like yours that's growing, that's got this really distinct specialization, which I think is really, really interesting.
Thanks.